So that's just me. What do you think that guy is?
Who's that old man?
Yeah,
With the gray hair.
but didn't I have it in here the last time? Like here. If you back up, you will be in the center. Back. I'll just move back. You can move back to the further back you move it. So I think we're starting. He says 13. 13, chapter 13, puzzle 13. There we are. So I think the Ani ana olich es chepasi viatoti ekechad.
I forgot the trend. What's going on now?
Remember the half brother of Tamar impregnated. That's Amnon.
Who are you blocking there?
It's Harold.
Yeah, I give up.
There we go.
Where is he?
There he is. Good luck. Shavua. Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov. Hi, Tammy.
How you doing?
How are you? Are you guys planning on going to Israel for Sukkot?
No.
No.
My kids come for Sukkot.
You what?
My kids come to us for Sukkot.
Oh,
Going to
very
Israel?
nice. Yes, Hashem. Yes.
When are you leaving?
It's San Gedalia.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Lots of people seem to be leaving on that flight.
Oh, really? Which, but we're not doing El Al.
A lot of people are not doing a lot because they couldn't get on.
It was totally
which-
booked.
So where are you flying through?
We're doing United from San Francisco.
Ah, okay.
That's smart. Then how do you get back?
Same way. Or through,
It's
What?
a good flight. Direct, it's good.
But on the way home?
Shavua Tov, everybody.
So tough.
We are on Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Tezvav. We're dealing with the rape of Tamar by Amnon, the Bechor of David HaMelech. So, Pasuk Tezvav, Vayisna'eh Amnon. Immediately after the rape, Amnon develops a hatred for Tamar. Sinah gdola me'od. Ki gdola sinah asher snea, the hatred was greater me ahava asher aheva, from the lust that he had for her. And vayomer la Amnon kumi lechi. Amnon basically throwing her out. So the Meforshim, what's the source of this sin? So we're going to see one pshat is that she caused him pain. Or she spoke harshly with him. Chazal understand that this is an expression of, like it says in Pirkei Avos, Kol ava shehi tluya b'davar, batal davar batla ava. Any love that is connected to something, so when the thing goes away, the ava goes away. V'she'ena tluya b'davar eina b'teira la'olam. A love that's not connected to some external thing can be an eternal love. What does the Mishnah in Avos say? Ezewi ava tluya b'davar zu avas Amnon v'Tamar. Amnon had a lust for Tamar. He fulfilled the lust. Once that was fulfilled, yet he had no real love for her. Once that was an external, that was a davar that is not existing anymore. What's an example of a ahava tluya b'davar zu avas she'ena tluya b'davar zu avas davar v'yonosan? Then the Abarbanel, as always, talks psychologically. When a person does like an evil act, he like regrets it afterwards. And Tamar's presence made him sort of relive it, and he didn't want to see her anymore because of that. The Radak says, I'll read it. Vayisnei Amnon, Zota Sinai Aita Siba, Meit Hashem, Kedei Lagdil HaCherpa B'Sholcho Oto MiBeito. This is all the Mida Keneged Mida that was promised by the Navi to David HaMelech. This is going to cause, the hatred caused Amnon to throw Tamar out of the house. This will create Yav Shalom Yoter Soneo Toad Mavet. This will create a hatred from Avshalom to Amnon. Avshalom is the brother who this terrible act and then throwing her out will cause Avshalom to hate Amnon even until death. Hachachashav Largo. And this is the Maisa, which was an Oynish David, al Maisa Bat Sheva B'Uriah. The sin of David Nasas Beveso, Zima Aboli de Cherev. And it's going to lead to killing. This has all been arranged, in essence, to fulfill the prophecy. This is basic pshat. Now, Chazal in Sanhedrin Chaf Aleph says, "Vayisnaya Amnon sinag dolamot." My timer. Amrav Yitzchak. Nima nikshuralo vaso krushuvcha. In the rape of Tamar, a hair sort of got caught up in Amnon's male organ, and it damaged him, and he became a krushuvcha. A krushuvcha is a deformity where the urethra has like an opening and out to the skin like a fistula. So it says tuadako krushuvcha lo yavo b'kal Hashem. So she made him a krushuvcha. That's what led to the sin. Now, the Aruch Laner, who was a great German Talmid Chacham in the time of Shimshon Raphael Lurish, gives a reason for this. Kavanat Tamar hayta lasot a krushuvcha. In fact, she wanted to make him a krushuvcha. Why? So Tamar Vadai Bas David Tzadekes Haisa. Tamar was the daughter of David. She was clearly a Tzadekes. Because we're going to see later on, the Chazal are going to say, Gather Gadol Gadra Tamar. Tamar.
Sorry, we late. Where are we holding? Ernie, sorry.
We just did Pasuk Tesvav, Perek Yud Gimel,
Yud Gimel, right?
right? That after the rape of Tamar, Amnon develops a great sin for Tamar. And we discussed some of the reasons why. Well, now we've discussed that Chazal say that Tamar made him a krushuvcha. Ma rasa lasosa krushuvcha v'chilin kom imena asta kain? Is she doing this like as a revenge? She wanted to stay married with him. She gave him advice, go ask David HaMelech and let's get married. Says the Orach HaNer. The din is that if a man rapes a Jewish girl, the Torah, there's a chiyuv for him to marry the girl if the girl wants, not against her will, and he can never divorce her. But she understood he wouldn't want to marry her. Mishum David ben Melech. She was a convert. This is the firstborn of David. He's going to take an Isha mimishpachas miucheses Yisrael. Kasher kvar hera daita shloita as no lasher bakasha mimenu ledaber adesal melech v'lava. She saw that he didn't agree to speak to David to get married. So listen to this. V'latchein hitchakma. She outsmarted him. V'asasu krushuvcha. V'lo yemutar od b'vas Yisrael k'mitzvas hakasuv. A krushuvcha cannot marry a regular bas Yisrael, but you can marry a giyoris. A tzuadaka or krushuvcha can marry a giyoris. Aval ba yemutar di giyoris if a kal gerim lo akrikal. Says lo yavo bekal Hashem. But gerim are not considered kal Hashem. They're kal gerim, they're a different kal. So in essence, he was trying to create a situation where she would be one of the only girls that he couldn't. That says the oracle there. Pasuk Tetzai. Vatomer lo. Alodot hara'ah gdola azot. Me'acheret asher asiti imi l'shalcheni. Besides the fact that you've raped me, now you're going to throw me out of your house? V'lo aval yishmo Allah. And Amnon didn't listen. The Meforshim explain, Ki gidoyla razot v'chepa v'zion yoter ma'acheret. It's the worst bizoyon. The rape occurred privately. By throwing me out of the house, everyone's going to see my embarrassment.
Hey, can I just ask you something? I would assume that was an irrational action on the part of Amnon, because why would he want to publicize his act? Why would?
Right. So by sending her out, it publicizes it. And
Exactly. So why it doesn't seem like like a rational act for him to do.
The rape wasn't rational either. Absolutely.
Yes, of course. But then so it's a continuation of this irrational sending her out and making it more public, or maybe it's part of the sinna that he feels about her.
The Malbim says that Tamar saw the act of throwing her out is worse than the rape.
Mm.
There's a mitzvah say that he has to marry her. But besides that, there's menschlichkeit. There's ben adam chavero. The rape causes her pain and embarrassed her. He did it to fulfill his lust. But all of that was done privately. By sending her out, this is being done before Hestia. And he's not gaining anything. So like Barbara was saying, it's completely irrational on Amnon's side. Zayin vayikrat narom sharto. In fact, he calls his servant, vayomer shilchuna et zot me'alai achutza. Throw her out. door behind her. Yudches. Valek tonet pasim. She had a ktonet, a Malbim is going to explain that this is like undergarments or garments that you would wear under a coat. The princesses, the daughters of the king, would wear an overcoat over the ktonet pasim. However, she was thrown out without the me'il. Malbim says, Yeshev del ben ktonet uvein me'il. Shaktonet hu atachto. It's like what you wear underneath. The me'il yatfu bo lamala. The me'il covers on the outside. Al kol abgadim. V'derech b'not ha'melech abtulot latof me'il al ktonet ha'pasim shelamata. The princesses, the betulos, the unmarried ones, would wear this me'il over the ktonet ha'pasim. However, b'shas ma'aseh histim aleh me'il ha'elagim. During the rape, Amnon had removed the outer me'il. She was only wearing the ktonet pasim. When he threw her out on the ktonet pasim, like beveged atachto. It was not the normal derech for the princess to go out in without that me'il covering them. So it was a further bizoyan from her kavod, and made her look like like a kadesha, like a loose woman. That's some of the bizoyon that Amnon showed to Tamar, that he didn't allow her to wear the proper clothing that she should have worn. Yutes, Vatikach Tamar Efer al Rosha. She was like in mourning. She put ashes on her head. Uktonet apasim asher alea kara. She tore her clothing. Vatasam yadal Rosha, vatelech aloch v'zakan. She put her hand on her head and went around the streets crying out. To tell the public she was raped. Now, on this pasuk, Vatikach Tamar Efer al Rosha, the Gemara in Sanhedrin Chaf Aleph, Tana Mishmei Rav Yeshua ben Korcha, Geder Gadol Gadra Tamar Ba'otasha. She established a new takana in Yisrael. Amru, Livnot Malachim Kach. If a princess could get raped, Livnot had Yodas Allah Kama V'Kama. How much more so that it could occur to the daughter of a regular person? And it was known that Tamar was at Tznuah. Im Litznuah's Kach. The Prutzas Allah has Kama V'Kama. To women who were more loose in their morals, it could also happen. There was no din at this point that you could not sequester yourself in a room with a single girl. You're not allowed to have yichud min Torah with any erva to you. Any prohibited relation, you're not allowed to have yichud with them. That's min Torah. But prior to this, there was no din of yichud with a pnuya, with a girl that is a single girl. Now, the Gemara says like this, yichud doraisahu. What do you mean now Chachamim are making a gzer of yichud? Yichud is doraisahu. Rav Yechon Mishum Rav Shimon ben Yotzadak, remez liyichud ben ator minai. Shenemar ki yisitcha achicha ben imecha. This was in this week's parsha. Your brother is going to be inciting you to worship Avodah Zarah. Achicha ben imecha, the son of your mother. What do you mean? Ben ein mesis, ben av eino mesis. What? Only a brother from the same mother will be mesis you, but a brother from the same father will not. Elaloi melacha. Ben misyached imimo. It teaches me a din in halacha that even though there's an erva, a ben is not allowed to live with his mother, a ben is allowed to be miyached with his mother. But that's the only exception. Vein acher misyachidim kol haraisha b'Torah. There is no yichud with any other prohibited relation. Ela'ema gozra al yichud de pnuya. So it wasn't ala yichud v'ala pnuya. It was together. Yichud with the pnuya. This was a new din that was established by Tamar showing her displeasure by what happened. It led to a public outcry and led to the Chachamim making a new gzeira that the din of yichud with a pnuya is from this ma'aser. Not only that, the Radak says, "Omdu beis dino shel David, the gozra v'asu l'syachidim apnuya." Afilu tahora asur b'yichud. That even single girls would go to the mikveh on becoming a nida, not because they were having relations with anybody, but they helped their mothers prepare bread and other foods. And if you were tamei, there were households where the father was a chaver. A chaver ate all of his foods b'tahara. So even the banois were tohor. Even so they're not usher to be mis. That means you might think, well, I can't be yichud with a pnuya. She might need a nida. So just like I can't do yichud with someone who's usher to me, like a mother, a sister, a daughter, any prohibited relation. Maybe I can't do yichud with a pnuya because she's not tohor. So no, even a pnuya who's tohira. This is now a new isser, a yichud with a pnuya. See, can I call you? I'm teaching now the Navi Shir. Can I call you? I'm sorry. Betty, I'll call you back, okay? Okay. No problem. Like the Radak says, the mistoma tomer tohira haisa after Yosef pnuya. Kivin dahavu oichlin chulin b'tahara. Something strange for us because we don't eat our food b'tahara, but pnuyos would also go to the mikveh to be tohar mitumas nida even before their marriage. Pasuk Chav.
Ernie, can I make a comment, please?
Ernie.
Just an alternate explanation that the Me'am Lois gives regarding Vatikach Tomar Afer. Afer is the shoresh of Ma'aforet, which is an apron, which I assume the Me'am Lois sees that Tamar put on her head like a kerchief because she was no longer a virgin. So perhaps that's another way of looking at interpretation of Afer. That's all.
Right, so it was like another sign to the public as to what had happened to her, that she was not a Basul anymore. Pasuk Chav. Vayomer Elea Avshalom Achia. So her brother Avshalom says to her, Ha'aminon achicha haya imach. So he had heard. Now you notice he called him Aminon. Like the Meforshim says, Dercha medabrim lahoisif oisios lahaktin adaver. Like somebody will call somebody, Moishela. Right? It's like a belittling comment. So Avshalom, who's angry with Amnon, calls him Aminon. He says to her, he gives her advice, be silent, he's your brother. Don't think about this anymore. Move on. But Teshev Tamar v'shomema beit Avshalom achia. Tamar dwelled in Avshalom's house, and she didn't go out anymore. The Malbim says, Amar le Avshalom shetishtok mitzad gimel ta'amim. Number one, mitzad kvoda, lo tia lavuz al yedei shityachta im ish. Don't reduce the embarrassment. Kiloya, and he says like this, Kiloya in zar rakachicha yaimach. In some ways, he comforted her by saying, it wasn't a strange person, it was your brother. And if it was because of the evilness of the act, better tov shetishkechizot melibech Kimasha haya haya. What had happened, it happened. The Malbim says that Avshalom was telling her to move on. Don't wallow in it. The Kli Yakar says, "Lefi shah hacharish yachoisiyak." Just be quiet temporarily. The enkom nikmatcha. I will revenge you. Aval tzarich lahachrish. I want you to be silent to fool him. K'dei sheyiteh she'en li imosina al zeh. I'm going to fool Amnon. I'm going to act as if I don't have any hatred to him. So I can, my nekama can be sudden and unexpected. That's how the Kli Yakar learns. Chaf Aleph. Ve'amelech David shamad kol adrima eleh vayichar la me'od. David HaMelech finds out about this. The Iyei Hayam makes a wonderful diuk here. Normally, when it says vayichar, when someone's angry, what do we normally, what's the pasuk say?
Yicharapo.
Vayichar apo, or vayichar af, absolutely. Here it says vayichar lo. So the Yeham says, lo nemar vayichar apo kim vayichar lo. Ki chara ala nogea lo. Ki bazeh yitarev yizkor ba'am inyanoim bat shava. He's upset, David, that the public is learning about this. And he's concerned it's going to remind people about his activity with Bathsheba.
In addition,
Because
he was
the late Tanei Ador are going to say, Sha'amnon me'avicha lamad, that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You see, the father did something like this, the son's going to do the same thing. So that's why Ichar Lo, it was personal. Yes, Barbara.
in addition, he was the one who sent Tamar to Amnon. You know, he followed up. So he feels culpable because I mean he did send, you know, Tamar to Amnon's room.
So exactly what the Al-Shich says. So where the Chomas Anach says that, Shalom Ha'od, Tevat Lo Daika Ki Hikirshanim Shachmi Mashamar Nosna Navi. Right? That he understood that all this is happening as part of the klala that Nosna Navi gave him. The Yeshmi Shapiresh, the Charaloshu Shalach Latamar Eitzel Amnon. Like Barbara said, he's actually the one who sent Tamar to Amnon to help, you know, get Amnon better. But the Kli Yakar says that David was angry. Or David didn't. It doesn't seem anywhere that David punished Amnon.
Ernie, do you think there was a way that David could have reprimanded Amnon in private? You know, here was a situation as a father, he should have reprimanded his son. And the fact that he didn't also really made Avshalom even more incensed that he was getting away with a crime. Correct. That he should have at least reprimanded, punished, something as a father. That should have been his obligation, his responsibility.
And what you said is it could be very correct that he did chastise him privately, but he didn't show it publicly. Kav Chet, Kav Beit. V'lo diber Avshalom im Amnon lemeirav atov. Avshalom didn't speak to Amnon for good or bad. Ki sanei Avshalom et Amnon. Avshalom now developed a hatred for Amnon. Al dvar asher ina Tamar choto, because he raped his sister. Now, most of the Mefarshim say, Shelo diber Avshalom im Amnon klal. He never spoke to him again. Some say that he just didn't speak evil. He hid the fact that he was hating him. The That's how most of the Meforshim are explaining. Now, we're going to see that's a problematic pshat, because we're going to see in a few psukim that Avshalom invited all of the other princes, the sons of David, to a celebration of the shearings. If it's true that he never spoke to him, or that he had that kind of level of hatred, how did he eventually invite Amnon to that event as well? So the Barbanel, again, it's always the Barbanel he's just straight. The Aniach Shav says the Barbanel Shav Shalom Yamidaber Kol Hayom Im Amnon Achiv. The Barbanel says he continued talking to him. How later on did Amnon go so willingly to Avshalom's house if he knew that, if Amnon had stopped speaking to him and he saw the hatred, he would never have gone. Says the Abarbanel, al kavanata katu, Shalom lo diber Amnon klal, b'zeh yinyan al shana tamar im yotom neber imo b'shar yanim kulam. He never spoke to him about what had happened with Tamar, but he spoke to him about other things. Now, the Sefer Orchas Tzadikim says Yesh kama minei sina. There are a number of kinds of hatred. Yesh sonei et chavero avur shehizik lo b'mamono o sheikahu o avur shebaishu. Sometimes a person hates a person. He made him lose money. He struck him physically. He embarrassed him. O shahotzi alav shemra, or was speaking slander about him. Al kol elu v'chayotz ben lo yisnat chaver v'yishto. These kind of things, a person is not going to hate and be silent. Says the Orchas Tzadikim, Kimo shenemar b'Rishoim, lo diber Avshalom im Amnon lemirav atov ki sanei Avshalom et Amnon. Rav, it's Avshalom who hated, not because of an external, one of these, something happened to him directly. Because if you hate somebody, mitzvah alav lo dio v'lomer lo. If you don't like somebody because they did something to you, you have a mitzvah. It's called hocheach tochiach et amitecha. Lama asiti li kach v'kach. You're supposed to ask, well, why did you do this to me? And in fact, im chozer ubikesh mimenu limcholo, sark limcholo. A person did something bad to you. You have a mitzvah to confront him and say, why are you speaking bad about me? Or why did you strike me? Or why did you make me lose money? And if he asks mechila, forgiveness from you, you have a chiyuv to be moichelim. But Orchas Tzadikim shows that this sina, where he was completely quiet, is not it has nothing to do with the regular case of Ochech Tochis Amisecha.
Ernie, I know this is his half brother, but think of it in terms of modern terms. If somebody raped your sister, would you want to talk to him and Hocheach Tochiach is Amisecha? I mean, it's not reasonable. It's like,
well, remember, we went through last week all the pshatim to show that really she wasn't related to Amnon. To Amnon, she wasn't related. Oh, you're saying it's Avshalom's sister? Yes.
yeah.
So you're saying it's a natural response for him not to confront Amnon about it. Why?
No, they
Based on
confront-
Ochech Tochiach, he should confront her. He should confront him. And he should have asked Mechila. I mean, I know we're living in a perfect world. People are not perfect. But the Torah says, the din of Ochech Tochis Amitecha is exactly the way we just learned tonight. Someone does something wrong to you, you're supposed to confront him. And you're supposed to say, why did you do this? And the person is supposed to get to a point where he's supposed to ask Mechila for what he did.
Yeah, but Ernie,
Yeah.
there's some things which go beyond this. This is a passionate thing, you know. When you had that, basically when they were having relations in front of in the midbar, and what happens? You had what happens?
Yeah,
Pinchas came, and he was passionate about his religion and everything else and what they were doing, and he killed them both, and he was not guilty, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said he's not guilty.
Well, Haboel Aram is Poigen boy.
Right.
Yeah.
No. But I'm just saying there's certain times where people are passionate, right? So there's nothing you can do, even if you go and ask them, right, to be, you know, to basically.
Why did you do it?
Right. They don't have an answer. It's a passionate thing. It's a thing that they cannot control. It's uncontrollable for them. It can happen. It happened for the wrong reason, of course. But this is an uncontrollable thing for him, obviously.
But the Orchas Tzadikim is calling Avshalom a Rasha for not doing it, for not being Moichiachim.
I hear what you're saying.
No, I understand, but it's certainly that I think you and Bernie are correct. It's not the natural emotion for people to be able to do that easily.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to do it. And it says another interesting Echad b'peh ve'echad b'leiv. It says in Breshis Rabbah, Vayiru echav ki oto av avihem mikol echav. Vayisneu oto. Right? We're talking about Yosef and his brothers. The brothers saw that Yaakov seemed to love Yosef more than them, and it led to hatred. But mitoch gnutam shel shvatim ata yodeh shvacham. And they say over there, Lo diber Avshalom imanu lemirvat tov. Dai belibe. But v'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom, dai belivon bepuman. The Medrash over there says the brothers did confront Yosef. There, they could not speak Lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. They didn't have peaceful words with Yosef. They didn't hold it in their heart. They were mochiach, or what they thought was a problem. Remember, they thought there was Lashon Hara. He was telling Lashon Hara about the brothers to Yaakov, whatever. There they're contrasted in a positive way to Amnon, who remained silent. And this led to a problem, because Amnon didn't stay away from Avshalom because Avshalom was hiding his hatred.
What is אל תדין את חברך עד שתגיע למקומו?
Don't judge your friend until. So what you want to say? Because Amnon had such a desire.
I mean, what does that mean? אל תדין את חברך עד שתגיע למקומו. So what?
That means don't judge your friend. You have to be in his shoes. But that's. I'm not sure that's talking about a case where somebody committed this kind of act, an evil act. It's not. We can't justify. Oh, Amnon had a lust, a passion that he couldn't control. There, maybe we could say you can judge him.
So where is the border that when to do what?
Okay, we have to. That's a sugya in its own. We have to see what is the criteria when we have that warning of don't judge your friend unless you're been in his place. We have to see what the getter of that is. It's a good point, but I don't believe it relates here, because all of them, of course, they don't see any justification in what Amnon did. You have to be able to control your yetzer. You can't give into it.
Yeah, so the only possible justification that Amnon can have is initially he really wanted to marry her. He wanted to marry Tamar in good faith, but then realized that it just could not happen. So then the problem is he had a chavera, right? His cousin talked about plotting things in a surreptitious manner and got him to do the Avera. You know,
Why couldn't he marry her?
Well, she was a Giyoris. He's the Amnon was the Bechor of David. So that's why we learned this Orach Laner that said she made him a Krushuvcha, not because so technically he could marry her. But this thing about the brothers, they were given praise by Chazal that by Yisnu Tov Lo Echlu Shalom mitoch Genusam Lamadnu Shvacham, that even though they had no right to hate Yosef, but at least they spoke it out.
When did he? I thought they never did. They just were. They could not be two-faced. They couldn't. I think they didn't say to him. I don't think they ever confronted him.
No, it says, well, there was not lo yachlo dabro shalom. Chazal say they showed their hatred to him. That's what it means.
They did. I don't remember. They were very clear, or maybe they were just.
And by the way, and then based on that, it's even much more puzzling. Why did Yaakov send Yosef to Shechem?
Exactly right.
Why did Yosef go?
So that's why.
It's very clear from the Medrash we learned that they did not hide their sinna for him, and therefore they're praised. Yosef should have learned a lesson and not gone. They were sending the right signals. Not like Absalom who hid it.
I think that the name of Tamar is a little difficult for Rayos. Tamar and Yehuda, and here Tamar and Amnon.
Right. Okay, so remember, we talked about all of there seems to be a lot of schmutz around David HaMelech and the Mashiach. And the Medrash says that the Satan is diverted away from this family. You know, like we stop blowing shofar a day before Rosh Hashanah. We're trying to confuse the Satan. Whatever that means. It's very hard from a theological point to understand all of those things. But it's the same thing the Midrashim give us, particularly the Zohar, that it's all the way back to Lot, right? Moab is created by Lot's daughter sleeping with him. And then Ruth HaMoaviyah comes from Moab. And then the whole issue of Ruth that may be Moavit below Moavit. So you can see, and of course, Yudah v'Tamar. So that's all done. I think I've said this before. That's a midrashic thing, like a Kabbalistic thing, that somehow the Satan has to be diverted. Because if he knew which family the Mashiach is going to come from, he would fight it harder. But we were once at Steve Uzdan's house, and Beryl Wine was there. And it was when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton. There was a whole discussion. Trump is, he didn't have the shiniest of reputations. So Beryl Wine reminded us that was the case of David HaMelech, that a Jewish king is supposed to have skeletons in his closet to bring him down a notch. He's not supposed to be completely, shiny and without skeletons in his closet. So it's not so bad to have a leader like that. You can bring him down a little bit. And therefore, all of these schmutzidige stories, it's part of that narrative, perhaps. Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vayilish Latayim Yamim. 2 years go by. Vayu Gozizim Lav Shalom. Beval Chatzor. Asher Ephraim. Avshalom had sheep, and once a year, a period of every so often, they would shear the sheep, and they would make a festival out of it. Vayikrav Shalom Chol Bnei HaMelech. And Avshalom invited all of the princes of the king. Now, Yerushalmi says, what's with this 2 years? So in Sota, in Yerushalmi Sota says, Yesh zchut toy l'shana achat, Yesh zchut toy l'shtei shanim, Yesh zchut toy l'shalosh shanim. And yesh chutor l'shon achas min Nebuchadnezzar, that something was delayed 12 months by the case of Daniel because of a certain schut that he had. Then it says, yesh chutor l'shtei shonim me Amnon. What was this? Amrav Yosi. Kol oisen shnei masar chodesh haya oisik b'mitzvahs. Kol oisen shtei shonim haya osik b'toira. Harei da'anan haya osik b'tshuva v'tor kol osu hayomim. U'schut hazot hitzil oto shtei shonim. Amnon sort of became a Baal Tshuva. He was oisik b'mitzvahs, he was oisik b'toira, and that saved him for those 2 years.
But if he went through that process, why didn't he ever get back to Avshalom or Tamar to ask forgiveness?
Oh, so if he had known that Avshalom was harboring hatred against him, so that's, we're seeing how important it is to be mocher tochias amisecha. He never knew there was a problem. Avshalom never
Realized it was a problem after that act.
Well, that's because remember, lo diber
he went to
meira'otav. They didn't speak about it at all. That's what the Barbanel said. They had spoken about everything else, but not about that.
Did she go back to the palace, or did she remain with Avshalom?
No, she went. Remember, Avshalom also said, "Go back."
Oh, he said go back,
Said,
right?
go back,
As though nothing happened.
as though nothing happened, as though nothing. So therefore, again, so we see the value of not harboring hatred quietly, because then maybe that could have, as you say, he had studied Torah, mitzvahs. He would have asked Mechila, and maybe that would have saved him. Chavdalet. Vayavor Shalom LaMelech. Vayomer Hinena Gozim Lavdecha. Yeilech LaMelech Bavadecha Im Avdecha. Avshalom invites the king himself to come. Vayomer HaMelech El Avshalom Albani Alna Nelech Kulanu. V'lo nichbad alecha. No, you know what? I know how expensive it is, says David HaMelech, for me and my entourage to come. I'm not going to be matriach you. He blessed him, and he said, I'm not going to come. Avshalom was being smart. He knew David HaMelech's not going to come to a mishte like that. It's not Kavod HaMelech. It was another way to also divert the attention away for his plans of what he's going to do. No one suspected anything. If he invited David, Chavav. But maybe you'll send Amnon. And David doesn't jump at it. Now, there are those that ask, he already invited all the princes. The princes include Amnon. So the Abarbanel says he's the Bechor.
He's the heir apparent.
He's next in line to be the king. It's not for his covet to be invited with all. He deserves a separate invitation. Some say that the reason why it says that he didn't go right now is because he was learning. He didn't want to leave his learning. He was oisik b'torah v'tshuva, and that's what the Yerushalmi brings. However, vayifretz bo Avshalom. Avshalom was persistent on David to send him Amnon. David had not a clue that there was sina ben Avshalom la'Amnon. Vayishlach ito et Amnon v'kol bnei HaMelech, and he sent him.
Ernie, I think some midrash, I forget whom, described Avshalom as somebody who was very charismatic, very persuasive, had a way with words, could convince most people to do anything. And obviously we see that.
The power of Avshalom. You're saying that even before we get into the guts of the story of Avshalom, we already see his tchunot. We see what his powers were. And then, like what Barbara said before about sending Tamar to Amnon, this is part of the onesh, that in the end, David himself is the one that sends Amnon to Sudas of Shalom, which is going to lead to Amnon's end. More punishment for David. Pasuk Chavches. Vayitzav Avshalom et narav lemor. Re'una, look carefully. Ketov lev Amnon bayayin. When Amnon is drunk. V'amarti aleichem haku et Amnon. And I'm telling you, strike him. V'amitem oto, and kill him. Al tiro, don't be afraid. Halo ki anochi tziviti etchem. I'm commanding you. Chizku v'yu livnei chayil. And be strong of heart. Now you notice he uses plural terms. Haku. So the Das Soifrim learns, very interesting. Yesh oimrim. The Amar B'Loshen Rabim should tzivu lekulam. Sheyasu achadim yachdav k'dei shlo yichal litnaged. Number one, that by being confronted by a large group, he won't be able to fight back. V'ulai gam k'dei shlo yu chayav mita al pi din Torah. You will not be chayav misa by Sanhedrin. K'di isa in Sanhedrin ayin ches. The hikaw asar bnei adam b'asar maklos b'vasachas kulam pturim. 10 people strike a person with 10 sticks, and he dies. All 10 are potter. Because the Torah says, Ish ki yakeh, v'lo shnaim she'iku. So Avshalom was sort of protecting them, not just from a responsibility point of view, because he said, because we know the din, ein shlichus l'dvar aveira. There is no, like what we have in our law, where, let's say, if there's a conspirator who pays somebody money to murder somebody, well, the conspirator can be accused of, can be convicted of a crime. In Jewish law, it doesn't work that way. Ein shlichus l'dvar aveira. Normally, for example, I can appoint a shaliach to give a woman kiddushin, because shlicho shaladam kamoso. It's as if I gave it to him. But when I tell somebody, go kill somebody, we don't say shlucho adam kamoso as if I killed him. No, because the shalich is supposed to, if you hear from the person who's sending you, and you hear from God, who are you supposed to be listening to? The Torah says don't murder. So you're not supposed to listen to the shaliach if he tells you to do something against the Torah. So here Avshalom is giving them protection even from Dinei Torah by commanding them in a plural way. Pasuk Chavtes. Vayasunari Avshalom la'amnon, kasher tziva Avshalom. Vayakumu kol bnei hamelech vayarkavu ish al pirduso vayanusu. And the servants of Avshalom kill Amnon, and the rest of the princes run away. And there's a whole debate here. They rode on a mule. A parrot is a mule, which is a product. If you mate a horse and a donkey, they have a mule. A mule is sterile. So this, how can they write? The Yerushalmi asks, "Isi ben Akavi Omer, Oster lirkov al gabi freda." If you can't ride on a mule, if you cannot wear begadim that normally you can wear wool and linen together, but you combine them, you can't wear them together. Here, certainly, same thing. When you create this kind of hybrid, you're not allowed to ride on it. So the Tosfos Yontif learns that according to the Rambam, ein isur rak b'behemet Torah im tmeya. If you cross a non-kosher animal with a kosher, im kain ein apreda so v'na Torah. Sharei apreda ba min asus v'chamor. Both a horse and a donkey are treif animals. Shem shteihem min tamei. V'karach v'na Torah muter livkov al sus v'chamor yachtav. So umemela gam apreda sharei min Torah. This is the side halacha. Pasuk lamed. Vayema baderech. And they're on the road, the princes. Vashmua Baal, David Lemor. Hikav shalom et kol bnei hamelech, v'lo notar mehem echad. Rumor got to the palace of David that all the children of David had been killed. Lamed Aleph. Vayakam hamelech vayikrat begadav. He tore his clothing. Vayishkav artza. Now, what does he do before he tears his clothing? Yakam. He stands up. So first of all, he did hear that his son was killed. Yishkav artza is kfiyas samita. You take the bed and you turn it upside down. That these are all dinim avelis. Yet, it says the avodim also tore their begodim. Now, some say they tore it because of the covenant of David HaMelech. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says, you tear kriya if you hear about Adam kosher, she'ena kosher al shum avera, v'lo shum bitul mitzvah, a Jew, a regular Jew, who we know he's not a bal avera, and he's not mevatel mitzvahs. Afal pi she'ena gadol b'toira, the afal pi shlo Ahmad b'shas yitzir neshama. Normally, you only tear kriya, of course, with a relative, or if you're present actually at the death of a person, even if he's not related to you. However, the Shulchan Aruch brings that you're chayiv to tear for an adam kosher. However, v'husha omet sham b'misa l'kvura, says the Ramah, yesh oimrim de'ein chayiv likra adam kosher elim kein oimin alav b'shas yitzir neshama. So the Ashkenazim follow this, that we only tear kriya if you're present actually with someone's actual death. And some say that since at this time they thought all the princes of David were killed, because for a chacham, if you hear that a chacham passed away, you have to tear kriya, even if you're not there by Yitzias Neshama. Also, Moed Cotton, Chafaluf Amid Be'amav, Amrabi Charchama, Minayin Lekriya Shehimu Umed Mehacha, Vayakam Amelech Vaikrat B'Kadav. The din of Kriya, you have to be standing. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Yoredeya, Shin Mem, Misha Meis Lo Meis, V'uma Meisim Shiroi L'Sabed Aleim, Chayv L'Kra Alav, B'Tzach Sheyikra Me'umed. V'im Kar Miyushev Lo Yatsa. If the Kriya was done sitting, the Kriya was not done properly. Lamed Beis. Vayan Yonadav ben Shima Achi David. This cousin, like Bernie was referring to. Vayomer. Al Yomar Doniyet Kol Anarim Bnei HaMelech Emitu. Don't, it's not true that the rest of the princes were killed. Ki Amnon Levado made. Ki Al Pi Avshalom Hayta Shuma Yom Anatot Tamar Achotav. Now, Yonadav reveals David, the hatred that Avshalom had hidden and buried all this time since the rape of Tamar.
I think he wanted to clarify that it wasn't a political consideration on the part of Absalom, but rather
Who's wiping out all the other princes.
right.
The Malbim goes into that. Lamed Gimel. Ve'ata, now, Al Yasem Adoni HaMelech Elibo Devar Lemor, Kol Bnei HaMelech Metu, Ki Amnon Levado made. Only Amnon died. And now Lamed Daled, Vayivrach HaShalom. So Avshalom escapes. Vayisa Nar Tzofet Einav, Vayar V'nei Amrav Olchi Mider Chachrav Mitzad Ha'ar. He saw that the princes had reached Yerushalayim. Yonadav says, you see, what I told you is correct. Here's all your children. The sons came, now they're crying on the death of Amnon. The Malchus of Beis David is being machalal. And again it says, Vavshalom Barach. Vayelech el Tamai Amihud Melech Geshur. Remember, his mother was Maacha, the princess of Geshur. Vayitabel al beno kol hayamim. David HaMelech is in Avelis, in some sense for Amnon, and in some sense for Avshalom as well, who now has had to flee. Ask the Meforshim, why is there so much Avelis here? Lama Isabel kan David al Amnon, val benosho no latchila levasheva lo Isabel klal. There wasn't a description of such big Avelis. Remember, he ate right away. It's also, Shulchan Aruch says, also lisabel ames yoser midai. The Shulchan Aruch says in your dash shin tzarek daled ein miskashim ames yoser midai. V'chol miskash alav yoser midai ames acher hu boiche. If you show too much Avelis, you know what? They're going to chas v'shalom send you another person to be Avelan. So says the Kli Yakar. I'm going to read the Kli Yakar. Shekani tabel al shnei dvarim. Ha'echad al mitat b'no Amnon. But also, he tabel b'davar sheni al shaborach Avshalom etzel kshua v'imo. Hainu shaborach etzel agoyim. V'haya b'sviva grua v'lo yilamed shem el advoim roim. He's going to learn bad things in the place of the goyim. And we see the same thing by Yaakov Avinu. Vayisabel al b'no yamim rabim. When he hears about, when they bring him the goat skin, the ketonat pasim bathed in blood. Vayakumu kol banav v'chol b'notav nachamo vayima'en litnachem. Right? Yaakov didn't accept tanchumim. So, of course, the Midrashim say, because Yosef wasn't really dead, how, and it's the normal for a dead person is he would have accepted. However, the Tur says the time to look kibel tanchumim hayam mishum shechoshev atzmo keposhea b'misaso shesholcho b'derech yichidi. He's the one who sent him to Shechem by himself. U'lamakom shesoinim also. So kamo kana here's the same thing. Shechoshev David atzmo keposhea b'misas Amnon b'ma shesholcho im Avshalom. He felt the same way. He felt guilty. He had sent Amnon there. Says Lamed Ches v'Avshalom Baruch v'yelech Geshur v'yisham shalosh shonim. He remained 3 years in Geshur. V'atachal David HaMelech latzeit el Avshalom kinicham al Amnon kimeid. David has a longing to return to have a relationship with Avshalom. He forgave. The Abarbanel says, "Shekol hasholosh asherim haya David yotzei kama pa'im ban sheitzaval v'akesh Avshalom limtzoto lahargo bedam Amnon v'chol b'chor." David mounted campaigns for these 3 years to go find Amnon to kill him. But over the 3 years, az hishtadla achat vanashim, one of his wives, imo shel Avshalom, or maybe Tamar himself, Obiter shel Avshalom biksham hamelech umanauto milatzeit od levakesh Avshalom largo. They requested from David to stop doing that. So he sort of forgave about, he softened regarding the death of Amnon. He was makabel tanchumim. Now, therefore, he had longing for Avshalom.
So אין שליח לדבר עבירה, so why Avshalom was afraid?
So now, I'm going to answer Tzvi in a minute, but now, Yoav ben Tzruya understands that Kileva Melech el Avshalom shaya bilibo lenakem mimenu im hayot shelo yetza lav od lachem al kozeh Kileva Melech al Avshalom uzeh huchrach lasot zot et achol lakach v'ishat kuit b'perek. We're going to see this leads to the plan that Yoav has to try to end the relationship between David and Avshalom. Now, Tzvi, what were you saying?
אין שליח לדבר עבירה, so why Avshalom was afraid?
Ein Shlech Ledvar Ver, that's the Sanhedrin. But he killed one of David, he killed David HaMelech's Bechor.
But not himself. I mean, he is a
But
shliach.
he found out, obviously, that Avshalom had commanded them to do it. So Avshalom was afraid that he was going to. V'kachava, says the Abarbanel, that David went for the first 3 years every year with an army to try to catch Avshalom, to kill him. Eventually, he calmed down, and he was. This last pasuk says he didn't have that feeling anymore. But initially, Avshalom was correct to run away. This ain't shlichus advar vera. That's in Sanhedrin, in Chanami, by Besdin. But David as the king, and Amnon as his bechor, Avshalom probably realized that and felt threatened. Okay. The story goes on. Questions, comments. The story of Avshalom. We're just entering the story.
Yeah, I just have one comment having to do with goes in the ceremony of shearing the sheep.
Yes.
There are 4 times they appear in Tanakh, and each time it's stories of trouble. The first time with Rachel and Lot. Lot goes out to shear the sheep, and she steals the trophy.
Okay.
The second time is with Yehuda and Tamar. He goes out to shear the sheep, and she appears dressed disguised. And the third time is Naval appearing in front of David and having the argument with him.
Right.
I think
And
David
now
goes
here.
out to shear the sheep.
And now here.
Yeah.
Now here.
Okay.
Where did it say
Very
here?
good.
Where did it say here?
We just had it.
That Avshalom, they made a festival for sheep shearing and invited the princes of David.
Where does it say?
Okay, Shkaya.
Okay, very good, Bert.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody. Mirz Hashem,
Bayach.
next week, same time, same. Susie and I will be in Eretz Yisrael, but we plan to continue the shiurim.
Oh, how are you? Oh,
We're going to.
in Israel too. So how is that going to work?
I think 6 a.m. is 8 p.m. Or excuse me, it'll be 7 a.m. will be 9 p.m. LA time.
Yeah, that works.
So
Yeah.
that works for us,
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going.
right?
No jet lag.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll see everybody next. We'll see everybody.
Kodesh Tov.
Thank you. Chodesh Tov.
Hey, Sven Shalom. We'll see you soon.
That's true. Let me tell them. They could sleep in Leora's room if they want. Okay. Good idea. We can put one of the